started as a quiet night. Laughter, music, and the soft hum of a bar filled with people just trying to unwind. Two black twins walked in, wearing simple clothes, calm, respectful, unnoticed at first. But then came the stares, the whispers, and the sudden tension that thickened the air. Within minutes, flashing lights cut through the glass. Police officers stormed in, hands on holsters, voices raised, suspicion already decided. They didn't know who they were stopping. They didn't know the kind of men standing before them. One a Navy captain, the other a commander of the SEALs. And tonight, everything was about to change. The bar was small, dim lights flickering above polished wood counters, the smell of whiskey and fried food hanging heavy in the air. It was one of those quiet nights when laughter echoed softly from a few tables, the kind of place where time seemed to slow down, and TWO men walked in, tall, broad-shouldered, confident. Their skin glistened slightly under the soft yellow lights. They looked like brothers, identical, almost too identical. One wore a simple black jacket, the other a navy blue sweatshirt with faded jeans. Their steps were calm, unbothered, but their presence turned heads. People didn't know them, but in a town like this, being unknown and black was sometimes enough to be noticed and judged. An NTHE bartender, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, looked up and paused. His hand froze mid-motion as he wiped the counter. "Evenin'," he muttered, his voice cautious, unsure. The twins nodded politely and took a seat near the back, away from the crowd. They ordered water first, one with lemon, one without. Nothing strange, nothing loud. Just quiet NNBUT silence doesn't last long where prejudice breathes. From the corner of the bar, a small group of off-duty cops sat laughing, uniforms half unbuttoned, badges tucked away but still visible. They had been drinking, joking, unwinding from their shift. But when the twins walked in, the laughter dimmed. One of the officers leaned forward, squinting. "You see that?" he whispered to the others. "Haven't seen them before." Another shrugged. "Yeah, and? They ain't causing trouble." And THE first cop smirked. Yet, minutes passed. The twins spoke softly, occasionally smiling, one checking his watch, the other scrolling through his phone. They looked like any other men, tired after a long week, taking a quiet break, but the air around them began to shift. The officers kept glancing over, whispering, their jokes replaced by murmurs, and then the tension cracked. A bottle fell, shattered on the floor. The noise startled everyone. One of the twins turned his head, instinctively alert. The same officer who had been staring earlier stood up abruptly. "Hey!" he barked, pointing toward them. "You two, what are you doing here?" An NTHE bar went silent. Conversations died. An NTHE twin in the black jacket frowned slightly. "Just having a drink, sir," he said calmly. His voice was low, disciplined, respectful. An NTHE officer took a step closer. "You got ID?" An NTHE second twin, taller, quieter, looked up from his phone. His tone was even softer. "Of course, officer. But are we under some kind of suspicion?" An NTHE cop's eyes narrowed. "Just routine," he said, his words slurred slightly from the alcohol. But the way his hand rested near his belt, near his weapon, told another story. And then it happened. One of the bar regulars whispered. Cops called for backup. An NTHE twins exchanged a glance. Years of training, discipline, and instinct moved silently between them. They didn't panic. They didn't need to. They knew exactly what was coming. The system didn't care about calmness, about respect, about truth. Minutes later, the door swung open. The flashing red and blue of patrol cars spilled into the dim bar, painting everything in harsh light. 5 officers stormed in, hands already on their guns. "Step away from the bar," someone yelled. NNC hairs scraped. Glasses tipped over. The bartender froze, caught between fear and disbelief. NNTHE twins didn't move. They stood slowly, their hands visible, their eyes locked on the officers. The taller one took a deep breath. Slow, steady. He'd faced danger before. He'd faced enemy lines, sniper fire, and the chaos of war zones. But this was different. This was home. "Nen, sir," he said clearly, "we haven't done anything wrong." Before that night in the bar, before the flashing lights and raised voices, the twins lived a life most people couldn't imagine. They were born in a quiet southern town. Small, sun-soaked streets, rusting mailboxes, and a community where everyone knew everyone. Their mother, Lorraine, worked 2 jobs, mornings at a diner, evenings cleaning offices. Their father, David, a stern but kind man, was a Vietnam veteran. NNTHE twins, Marcus and Malcolm, were inseparable. From the moment they could walk, they followed the same path, the same games, the same bruises, the same dreams. But even as kids, they noticed how the world looked at them differently. In the grocery store, they saw mothers pull their children a little closer. In school, they saw teachers watch them longer than others. And when they played outside, police cars slowed down just a little, long enough to make them feel small. Their father used to say, "You'll have to be twice as good to get half the respect." And so they were. And Marcus was the loud one, confident, bold, a natural leader. He dreamed of flying jets, commanding ships, serving his country with pride. Malcolm was quieter, disciplined, calculating, the kind of man who spoke only when it mattered. They made a pact as teenagers that they would serve together, protect each other, and prove to the world that black men could lead with honor. NTHAT promise became their compass. Years passed. Marcus joined the Navy, rising through the ranks faster than anyone expected. He became Captain Marcus Reed, a man whose name commanded respect across the fleet. Malcolm, drawn to challenge and danger, joined the Navy SEALs, enduring pain, exhaustion, and fear that broke stronger men. But he didn't break. He became Commander Malcolm Reed, one of the best. Together they built lives defined by discipline, loyalty, and sacrifice. Yet even with medals on their chests, they never stopped being reminded of the color of their skin. There were moments, quiet, private ones, when that truth cut deep. Marcus once recalled landing at an airport in uniform, being saluted by a young soldier, and then, moments later, being followed by security through the terminal. Malcolm remembered walking into a restaurant, still wearing his SEAL insignia, and hearing someone whisper, "Bet he didn't earn that." They learned to live with it, to rise above it, to carry their dignity like armor. In BUT, that armor was tested every day. Their mother, now older, watched the news every night. Stories of police brutality, of young black men dying with their hands up. Every time she'd call her sons. "Promise me," she'd say softly, "if you ever get stopped, just come home alive." They promised. And every time, NNBUT promises don't always hold against reality. NNTHAT, the night in the bar wasn't supposed to be special. Marcus had returned home after a 6-month deployment at sea. Malcolm had just completed a classified mission overseas. They hadn't seen each other in almost a year. The plan was simple. A quiet drink, a little laughter, a moment to breathe before duty called again. Marcus had insisted on a small local bar, something humble, nostalgic. Like old times, he'd said, when they walked in they carried no arrogance, no attitude, just brotherhood and peace. But beneath that calm surface, they both carried the same scars, invisible, unspoken, and heavy. Malcolm had learned to read people, to feel tension before it appeared. He noticed it the moment they entered, the way certain eyes lingered too long, the uneasy hush that followed. He didn't say anything. He just placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder, a silent signal they had shared since childhood. "Something's off." Marcus smiled faintly. "It's fine," he whispered. "Let's just sit." One of the new officers stepped forward, shouting, "Hands where I can see them!" NTHE bar fell into chaos. Gasps, whispers, a few people pulling out their phones. In that moment, time slowed. The faces of the twins were calm. Too calm. Because they had seen this before. They had seen injustice wear a badge and call itself authority. NNBUT, what the officers didn't know was who they were threatening. These men weren't ordinary. They weren't criminals. They weren't the kind of men who ran from fear. They had commanded it. One was a decorated Navy captain, a strategist who had led missions across seas. The other, a commander in the SEALs, trained to survive, to protect, to defend. Yet tonight, none of that mattered. NNOT their medals. Not their service. Only their skin. NNTHE officer's voice broke through again. On your knees! And in that instant, the captain's eyes darkened. Not with fear, but with something far deeper. A quiet storm building inside him. He had fought for this country, risked his life for its flag. And now, under that same flag, he was being treated like a threat. NTHE bar's neon sign flickered, and the sound of a bottle rolling across the floor echoed like a countdown. Something was about to happen. Something that would make headlines. Something that would expose the truth about the world they thought they knew. Because tonight, NTHE ones being threatened weren't just men. They were soldiers. But it wasn't fine. It hadn't been fine for generations. As they sat in that bar, unaware that a call had already gone out, the ghosts of their father's warnings echoed in their minds. You'll have to be twice as good to get half the respect. And tonight, being good wouldn't matter. And outside, the night wind picked up. Somewhere, in the distance, the sound of sirens began, faint, but growing closer. Inside, Marcus looked at his brother. You think people ever change? Malcolm took a slow sip of his drink. People do, he said quietly. Systems don't. They didn't know those words would soon become prophecy. Because in a few short minutes, the men they had become, the warriors, the patriots, the sons, would be stripped of every title, every honor, and reduced to a single image in the eyes of the law. Two black men in the wrong place, an NTHE kind of story their mother had prayed they'd never become, an NTHE kind that starts like an ordinary night, and ends as a lesson the world can't ignore. The bar was dim, the air heavy with music and laughter. Marcus leaned back, half smiling, tapping his glass. Feels good to just exist for a night, he said. Malcolm nodded. Yeah. No missions, no reports, no orders. NBUT. The peace didn't last. Small commotion near the counter caught Malcolm's attention. A man, red-faced, drunk, and loud, pointed toward their table. His words slurred, but the venom was sharp. Hey, you two, what are you doing here? This ain't your kind of place. NTHE bartender froze. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Marcus exhaled slowly, eyes down, refusing to bite. Malcolm's jaw tightened. He'd been trained to keep calm under gunfire, but this was different. An NTHE drunk man sneered. Don't ignore me. You two think you can just sit here like you own the place? An NTHE bartender tried to intervene. All right, sir, that's enough. Let them be. NNBUT, it was too late. The man pulled out his phone and muttered something about calling the cops. Minutes later, flashing red and blue lights painted the bar's windows. Everyone looked up. Marcus whispered, Here we go. 4 officers walked in, hands already hovering near their holsters. The energy in the room changed instantly. Every conversation died. An evening, gentlemen, one officer said, voice cold, formal. We got a call about a disturbance. You two fit the description. Marcus frowned. Fit the description? We were just sitting here. An NTHE officer's tone sharpened. ID. Both of you. Now, Malcolm slowly reached for his wallet, but another officer barked. Hands where I can see them. NHE froze. Hands up. Marcus, calm but firm, said, Officer, there's no need for this. We haven't done anything wrong. NNTHE first officer stepped closer, face inches from Marcus's. That's for us to decide. Malcolm looked around. Every eye in the bar fixed on them, judgment mixed with fear. Some recorded with phones, others whispered. The brothers stood still, controlled, breathing through their anger. And Marcus handed over his ID. Captain Marcus Reed, United States Navy. NNTHE officer glanced at it, smirked, and tossed it on the table. Nice story. You can print anything these days. Malcolm's voice was low but sharp. That's a federal ID. You should show some respect. Respect? The officer said, mocking laughter bubbling from his throat. Respect is earned, boy. NTHE word boy hit like a bullet. Malcolm's fists clenched. Marcus reached out, silently warning him. Not here. Not like this. And another officer radioed outside. Yeah, send another unit. Situation looks tense. NNTHE bartender spoke up. They didn't do anything. They're just having drinks. NTHE first officer turned. Stay out of it, ma'am. We'll handle this. Marcus felt the old ache in his chest. The same one his father used to talk about. You'll have to be twice as good. He took a step back, keeping his voice steady. Officers, I'm asking you to calm down. You're escalating something that doesn't exist. NBUT escalation was already happening. And one officer grabbed Malcolm's arm. Outside, both of you. Marcus moved instinctively. You don't put your hands on my brother. NTHE officer spun toward him. Is that a threat? Malcolm intervened fast. No, sir, we're cooperating. His voice trembled with suppressed fury. Outside, the cool night air hit them. Flashing lights blinded their vision. The crowd that had gathered whispered and filmed. An NTHE officer pushed Malcolm against the wall. Spread your legs, hands behind your back. Marcus stepped forward, tone commanding. Officer, that's enough. NTHE officer turned, sneering. Or what? You'll file a complaint? You think your fancy uniform means something here? NNFOR a moment. Time slowed. Marcus's instinct as a captain battled with the humiliation of being treated like a criminal. He raised his hands, trying to de-escalate. My name is Captain Marcus Reed. That's Commander Malcolm Reed, U.S. Navy SEALs. We've served this country our entire lives. NNTHE officers hesitated. Just a beat. Then one of them laughed. Sure you are. You got any proof? Malcolm's temper finally cracked. Proof. The proof is the flag we fought under. The proof is the scars on my body. The proof is the freedom you hide behind. NNTHE lead officer shoved him harder. Calm down. Marcus stepped between them. You lay one more hand on him, and you'll regret it. Guns drew. Every breath froze. A voice from the crowd shouted, They're soldiers. Look at their tags. NNTHE officer glanced down, his flashlight catching the engraved Navy SEALs on their ID cards that had fallen to the ground. The realization hit. His hand trembled. Silenced, Malcolm stood there, chest heaving, eyes burning. Not from fear, but from decades of buried exhaustion. And Marcus looked at the officer, voice breaking but firm. You see uniforms, you see medals, but you don't see men. You don't see brothers, fathers, sons. You see color. NTHE officer didn't speak. None of them did. NTHE brothers turned, walking toward their car without another word. Cameras flashed. People stared. NTHE night swallowed the sound of their footsteps. Heavy, steady, full of unspoken rage. The road ahead was long and quiet. The city lights faded behind them as Marcus drove, his hands steady on the wheel, eyes distant. The sirens were gone, but the echoes of what had just happened still rang in the silence between them. Malcolm sat in the passenger seat, looking out the window, watching the reflections of neon signs smear across the glass like streaks of memory. For a long time, neither said a word. Finally, Marcus broke the silence. You know, I thought after everything we've done, the missions, the medals, the years of service, maybe it would mean something here. Maybe it would protect us. Malcolm didn't turn. Out there it did, but not here, not tonight. Marcus sighed. You think it'll ever change? Malcolm's eyes flickered to the side mirror, the fading lights of police cars now just dots in the dark. It has to, he said softly. Otherwise, what the hell were we fighting for? They pulled up to a small diner, one that stayed open through the night. They needed air, space, something that didn't feel like tension wrapped in silence. And inside, an older white woman behind the counter looked up. Her eyes widened as she recognized them. She'd seen their faces on the local news before. You boys okay? She asked gently. Marcus nodded, forcing a small smile. Just coffee. Black. NSHE poured without another word, her eyes glistening as she slid the mugs across the counter. Malcolm took a slow sip, then stared at his brother. It's crazy, isn't it? We've faced death 100 times overseas, but somehow, home still feels more dangerous. Marcus looked down at his cup. Because out there, enemies wear uniforms too. Here, they hide behind them. NNTHE woman behind the counter paused, her hands trembling slightly as she heard those words. Boys, she said quietly. My father was a cop, but he always said, if you forget who you serve, you've already failed. Malcolm nodded. Maybe someone needs to remind them of that. NNSHE smiled faintly. Maybe that someone is you. NNTHE next morning. Headlines spread like wildfire. NN twins harassed by police, both revealed to be U.S. Navy officers. Public outrage over racial profiling incident. Commander Reed speaks out. This is bigger than us. N clips from the scene flooded social media. The confrontation. The apology. The look on the officers' faces when the truth came out. It wasn't just a story anymore. It was a mirror. Marcus and Malcolm were invited to speak publicly a few days later. The room was packed. Cameras, reporters, activists, officers, civilians, everyone wanting to hear what they'd say. Marcus stepped up to the microphone first. His uniform was immaculate, his medals shining under the lights. I've served this country for 17 years, he began, his voice calm but heavy. I've led men into war zones. I've seen courage, I've seen sacrifice. But nothing breaks a man's spirit more than being judged by his skin before his words. NNTHE audience was silent. NNHE continued. That night, my brother and I weren't seen as officers. We weren't seen as veterans, we were seen as threats. And that's the problem. Not just with policing, but with perception. You can train someone to handle a weapon, but you can't train them to see humanity. That has to come from within. NNHE paused, looking around the room. We're not here to shame anyone. We're here to demand change, the kind that starts with acknowledgement. Then Malcolm stepped up beside him. His tone was sharper, but every word landed with precision. You know what hurts the most, he said? It's not fear, it's not anger, it's exhaustion. We're tired of proving our worth in a system that doubts our existence. We're tired of earning respect only after the world finds out who we are. What about the ones who never get that chance? What about the ones who never had a uniform to protect them? A murmur spread through the crowd. Some officers bowed their heads. Some wiped away tears. Malcolm's eyes scanned the room, unwavering. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for equality to stop being a slogan and start being reality. NNTHE applause was slow at first, hesitant, almost uncertain. Then it grew, stronger, louder, until the entire room was on its feet. Later that night, as they sat together on their porch, the brothers watched the sunset burn orange over the horizon. For the first time in days, the air felt still. Marcus spoke softly. You think it mattered? What we said? Malcolm nodded. It did. Maybe not to everyone, but to someone, somewhere, it did. Marcus smiled faintly. Then maybe that's enough for now. They sat in silence, listening to the quiet hum of crickets. And as the light faded, the camera slowly zoomed out, capturing the two brothers side by side, not as soldiers, not as symbols, but as men who had faced both the battlefield abroad and the one at home. NTHE night air was silent now, but the silence wasn't peace. It was the kind that suffocates. NNTHE flashing police lights still cut through the dark, painting the street in red and blue. Marcus and Malcolm stood beside their car, breathing hard, eyes locked on the officers who had just realized the truth. NNTHE lead cop, Officer Daniels, stared down at the fallen IDs on the pavement. His flashlight trembled slightly as he read the words, N. Captain Marcus Reed, U.S. Navy. Commander Malcolm Reed, U.S. Navy SEALs. NHE swallowed, eyes darting between the twins and his partners. The weight of what he'd just done began to sink in. NNBUT Malcolm wasn't done. Not this time. NNHE took a slow step forward, voice shaking with anger. You shoved me. You humiliated me. You pointed your guns at us. For what? For the color of our skin? Daniels looked down. Sir, Don't call me sir now, Malcolm snapped. You didn't see a man a few minutes ago. You saw a threat. That's all we ever are to you, isn't it? Marcus placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. Malcolm NBUT, Malcolm's fury wasn't rage. It was years of quiet dignity snapping under the weight of injustice. I fought in Kandahar. I lost brothers out there. Real brothers. Men who didn't care about color. Who bled beside me. And I come home, and this is what waits for me. NNTHE crowd around them grew. People were recording. Some were crying. Officer Daniels tried to speak again, his voice cracking. Look, we got a call. We were just doing our job. Marcus turned toward him slowly. Your job? Your job is to protect. Not to profile. Not to humiliate. You walked into that bar, ready to believe a lie, because it fit the picture in your head. Daniels looked broken, caught between shame and disbelief. Then, from the back of the crowd, a woman shouted, "They're heroes! Look them up!" Within seconds, someone pulled up an article on their phone. The crowd gasped. Headlines flashed across screens. Captain Marcus Reed receives Medal of Valor. Commander Malcolm Reed, decorated SEAL Team leader, returns home. NNTHE officers froze. Every phone now had their faces recorded. Every word, every action. And Daniels took a step forward, voice trembling. I didn't know. Malcolm stared straight at him. You didn't want to know. NTHE words hit like thunder. NNFOR, a long moment. No one moved. The only sound was the hum of police radios and the whisper of disbelief. Then Marcus finally spoke, quietly, almost to himself. You know what the saddest part is? Even after knowing who we are, you still don't see us. You just see uniforms. You see rank. You'll respect that, not because you should, but because you're forced to. NNHE turned to Malcolm. Let's go. NBUT. Before they could walk away, another patrol car arrived. Out stepped a senior officer, calm but sharp. Captain Walker, a man who'd seen everything. What the hell happened here? Walker demanded. Daniels stammered, Sir, we received a call. Walker cut him off. And you pointed guns at two naval officers without verifying anything? Do you have any idea who they are? Daniels froze. His partners looked away. Then Walker turned to Marcus and Malcolm. Gentlemen, on behalf of this department, I am truly sorry. Marcus looked at him, eyes hollow. Sir, we've been apologized to our entire lives. Maybe it's time for accountability instead. And Walker nodded slowly. You're right. He turned to his officers. You're all suspended. Effective immediately. NTHE crowd erupted. Half in shock, half in relief. Daniels looked pale. Sir, please. Ian Walker held up a hand. Save it. You embarrassed this badge tonight. Malcolm stared at them one last time. You didn't just embarrass a badge. You embarrassed humanity. NHE turned and began walking to the car, his steps heavy. Marcus followed. Silent as they got in, the cameras kept rolling. The world had seen everything. Marcus looked straight ahead. This will go viral by morning. Malcolm nodded. Good. Let them see. Let them see what respect looks like when you strip away the uniform. An NTHE camera lingered on their faces as they drove off. The pain, the pride, the exhaustion, all blending into one expression. Enough. Behind them, the streetlights flickered. Officer Daniels stood frozen, staring at his reflection in the police car window, seeing for the first time the man he'd become.